Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We, in our last video, talked about the Ra factor in Alif Lam Ra, and we mentioned that Ra stands for Rusul and Ra stands for Rabb. And when we compared the data and when we checked it against others, we found that our initial finding was supported by statistical data. That was very interesting. So when we carefully noted, we found that Alif Lam Ra chapters, we noted there were Yunus, Hud, Yusuf, Ibrahim and Hijr. All these refer to prophets. Every chapter significantly deals with a different theme, and every chapter does so with Ra specification. So, another scholar, he called them that these are the Amba ar-Rusul. Amba ar-Rusul, that means the news of the prophets. That means our study tallied with the early findings as well. And that means that our finding was supported by the early studies. And thus, we found that our study was going in the right direction. Then we surveyed all chapters and we found that similar patterns were found in all. And when we contrasted this with Alif Lam Mim, we found that the Alif Lam Mim chapters, they were talking about the Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And in this way, the power of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala was more emphasized in Alif Lam Mim chapters. For example, Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum, the Ayatul Kursi, or Allahumma malikul mulk, tu'til mulka man tasha, wa tanzi'ul mulka mimman tasha, wa tu'izzu man tasha, wa tuzillu man tasha. So you find that these chapters have patterns, specially related to Alif Lam Mim. So we can see that if we look at Baqarah, we find Alam in that, Lam in that, Al-Mal, Alim, Mala, and many other patterns made of Alif Lam Mim letters. Very interestingly, when we look further, we see that these chapters, the Baqarah chapters, they contain Alam, Azlam. So they combine other letters, but the common letters is Alif, Lam, Mim. Then when we referred to the attributes of Allah, we found very interesting finding that these letters directly relate to the attributes of Allah. So we mentioned before that scholars were saying Alif Lam Mim, Anallahu A'lam. Now there is support that Alif Lam directly relates to Allah, and to all the 13 chapters discuss Allah's role in the universe. All the Alif Lam chapters, there are 13 in numbers. So there is absolute control and authority over the universe and his role in sending, guarding and training of the prophets and in the destruction of the disobedient nations and individuals. There is complete control. Then when we look to Mim and the attributes of Allah, we find Al-Malik, Al-Mulk, Al-Mu'min, Al-Muhaymin, Al-Mutakabbir, Al-Qayyum, Al-Muhyi, Al-Mumit, Al-Mawla, Al-Muhit in Alif Lam Mim chapters. These attributes are explained in the set chapters. So look at the crown verse and the Ayatul Kursi and you will find very good examples. Then when we come to Hamim chapters, we note the same formula and we apply the same formula. So the great beauty of our research is that we devised one formula, as I said, that Hamim also have the special tributes toward Allah. So Hamim refers to Rahman, Rahim, Hakim, Hakam, Hakim, Halim, Hamid. So we can translate them. Rahman and Rahim, merciful. Hakim is the ruler. Hakam is the decider. Hakim is wise. Halim is the tolerant. Hamid is the praised one. So these are the very dominant attributes of Allah in the Hamim chapters. And the theme of the chapters as the binding force of the universe explained with reference to past and present events. So if we look at the typical verse, we can see that the Hamim surah, the first Hamim surah, that is Al-Mu'min, that says الَّذِينَ يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشَ وَمَنْ حَوْلَهُ يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ وَيُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ وَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً وَعِلْمًا فَاغْفِرْ لِلَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا سَبِيلَكَ وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ. So if you look at this one verse, we can see the Hamim in almost every word here. So you see الَّذِينَ يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشَ. Very interesting. Angels are not called angels here. They are called the upholder of the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hamilin al-arsh. Hamim. وَمَنْ حَوْلَهُ, and all that surrounds. And يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ, again Hamim. And then it says رَبَّنَا وَسَعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً. Rahma, again Hamim. And it says فَاغْفِرْ and وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ. So Jahim also contains Hamim. So we can see that there are Yahmilun, Man Hawlahu, Bihamdi Rabbihim, and Rahma and Jahim. 5 words in one single verse that contain Hamim. Very interesting finding. So we note that these letters, they have a special role in the text. They have a special role in the theme. Now if you look at the themes of Hamim chapters, we find Ha for Hayat and Mim for Mouth. And we note that these chapters actually deal with the theme of death and life in detail. And that means that first of all, they talk about the life and death plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They talk about the objections made by disbelievers. They talk about the life and death of the land, which dies but comes to life back. And therefore we see that the theme of life and death is covered very beautifully. And this was supported by Professor Ahmad Rafiq Akhtar when he said that Ha stands for Hayat and Mim stands for mouth. But what we have done is that we have given the formula in which the whole fits, and we are providing evidence from the text. So we see that these chapters contain Hamd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His hukum, and as He is a creator of life and death, and He is the controller of life and death. That means these chapters are not only decorated with these themes, but they carry on the philosophy of life and death, and they explain them in more detail. In a later video, I am going to specially talk on these Hamim. Presently, I am just covering the main general theme of the Haroof Muaqtaat. So I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope you shall be with us in the future videos. Thank you very much.